Hey, everybody. Victor Pisano with Charge Up. Once again, we're adding some incredible guests to our Building the Champions Mindset series. Always trying to look for resources that can assist you in the way you plan, prepare, and think about the sports you play. As a student athlete, we work on mindset, we work on leadership, and our goal is to provide you those tools necessary for growth and influence as well. Today, I'm excited to have a couple of friends of mine who were nice enough to join. We've got Stephen McRoberts, the head coach of Missouri State University women's volleyball, and somebody who I know you've seen before, and that's Russ Friedland, who is the associate head coach at Missouri State. And these two guys have followed each other now from Ole Miss, and they're getting ready to do some big things over here at Missouri State. Having the crew back together again has got to be exciting for you two. Once I saw the announcement with you, Stephen, I had this crazy feeling of what if, and then I saw it, and I was like, the band is back together again.
Yeah,
So I mean,
that phone
that
call was made before I even took the job. The phone call was to Russ and saying, "Hey, if I do this, you coming with me?" So we already had that in the works for sure.
Russ, I know for you, uh, we talked afterwards, and it's so much just more exciting to go somewhere with a friend. It's so much more exciting to be with somebody who's like-minded. And for you, you've had such an incredible journey as both a head coach and an assistant coach. And this is all part of that growth process. And I could tell last year you had so much fun just getting involved and learning new things and expanding your mind. You had spent so long doing both indoor and outdoor. You almost got spoiled last year by just getting to focus on indoor. Being an athlete yourself, playing volleyball, it was a way for you to grow and expand your knowledge base with Stephen. So, how do you feel now that you've settled in and you see reality coming with camps? And I saw the Build a Bear fundraiser. Things are happening. Y'all are talking to the girls. Does it feel real now? You don't have to pinch yourself anymore.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was an easy transition when we kind of Coach Mack and I came in and kind of did this together, and he provided me another opportunity to continue to coach and just to continue to work with him and learn from him and be able to just, I mean, crack jokes and when we need to, and then get pretty serious when we need to do that too. But it's been fun in the office. I mean, we spent a lot of time in the office those first 4 or 5 weeks, and it was, I mean, it didn't even seem like a chore as much of as we had to do with this program. It was easy to get up every morning and come to work, and we just got stuff done, but we also found time to talk and make jokes and try to hold back laughter from some bad jokes from both sides and all that stuff. So
I'm sure
it's
y'all
it's
are good at
very
that now.
yeah, oh yeah. It's very good. I mean, it's just easy. I mean, it's easy. That part. I mean, the job itself has had its challenges and been kind of tested a little bit um of how we do things, but coaching both beach and indoor in Louisiana, I was working those long hours anyway, so that part didn't even phase me at the beginning. I mean, it doesn't phase me at all. But it's just kind of nice to know that that he's got my back and things, and it's nice for me to be able to take some stuff off of his plate, especially coming in, because I also know what it's like to come into a program that needs a lot of attention, and I've done it by myself. And as much as much fun as that is, it's also like, oh my god, I just need someone to talk to, like, so in the office. So for us to be able to kind of talk, brainstorm, figure out what we need to do, and then try to help prioritize, okay, this is something that he needs to do, and then I can do, like, let me take as much off of his plate so he can focus on and really crush the things that he needs to do, and I can take the kind of the day-to-day communication, just the easy little things that we don't need him to be bothered with. I think that was nice to be able, and he trusts me with that stuff, which is huge. So that was it. Like I said, as easy of a transition as it could be.
So, Stephen, you hit the trifecta. You made an announcement of assistant coach. So why don't we give her a shout out? Tell me who you just hired as the assistant coach, along with Russ and yourself.
Yeah, AJ Lux is joining us, and we're really excited about her being a part of our staff for sure. Great up and coming coach, young lady, a lot of energy. Had a great run as a player at East Tennessee. She was at Francis Marion as a Division II assistant straight out of college, and just killed it in the interview process. So we had offered the job to her about a day or two before shutdown happened at the university. So we've known for 3 months that she's going to join us, but she's been sitting at her parents waiting for the go ahead that she can actually get paid. So excited to have her here for the last couple of weeks, and we're have a lot of catching up to do and a lot of aspects. But it's good to have everybody here working together.
Absolutely. So, Stephen, I'm going to jump in with you first. Your resume is extremely impressive in the fact that you've made such a commitment to the teams that you've coached, and your achievements speak for themselves. So the 23 years that you've invested in growing student athletes, in mentoring them, it's obvious that they're passionate and they believe in you. Tell me what those 23 years feel like today, and tell me in one word.
And that's a tough thing to say, one word, and I've already gone over that, I think. I just keep coming back in my mind to just the word blessed. I mean, this isn't what I envisioned 23 years ago when I took over at Lubbock Christian University, that I would work my way all the way up to a Power 5 job, compete against the best coaches in the nation day in and day out, whether it's non-conference or in conference. And so there were a lot of times over the last few years that I've had to pinch myself a little bit. It's humble, humbling, I should say. It's humbling to see how far I've been able to come, because I've had a lot of people help me get here, and great assistant coaches, support of my wife, Stacy, for sure. Just great people around me every step along the way. And I mean, as much as it looks really good on paper with the wins and accolades and stuff, it's about the people I've been able to do with, and they know, Russ knows. I mean, I couldn't do this by myself. I mean, it's anytime a coach gets like a coach of the year, it's a staff of the year. I mean, it's a lot of work that goes in to make that person who's at the top look good, and I understand that. I'm very appreciative of my staff. They're very appreciative of my players who've done really well throughout the years to help me get to where I'm at.
And Russ, with you, you're 8 years vested into just an amazing career for somebody still so young. And we talked about it earlier. Your responsibilities were not only indoor, but also sand. And I was fortunate enough to meet you during that period. And it was so exciting to see your enthusiasm and your love for the game. So I'm going to throw the same thing out at you. Here you are as a coach. Go back to those days when you were playing at Endicott in Massachusetts. Here you are today. Sum that experience up in one word.
It's hard. One word's hard. I mean, it's probably the same. Great, like blessed, like just, I don't know. I've never been afraid to jump through an open door. No matter how open it is, whether you have to like put a bunch of butter on your head and shove your head through it to get through it. Bunch of butter on your head and shove your head through it to get through it, or if it's wide open for you. But I've never like been afraid to jump and take a risk. And I mean, in the I guess 8 years of full-time coaching, and then there's probably 7 more that are hidden in there with volunteering and spending time and trying to get like those 8 years are the ones that I've been doing it full time. The other 7, we're all building it, trying to work for different head coaches, coach club, work for free, like a lot of hours. And that's what gained me so many connections in my network right now to be able to do this. I mean, my network, when I'm leading up to me being in Louisiana, is what led me to Coach Mack, and that's what opened these last 2 doors for me. It wasn't like I've known him for 10 years. So it's been, and it's kind of crazy. It's just my high school just happened to offer a boys volleyball program, and I just was kind of over baseball. My parents, 4 years before that, moved us to a new town to get me into a school. Well, the old school that I would have gone to, the high school that I would have gone to, was like a much smaller school. It had basketball, baseball, and the normal sports. It didn't have, so like my parents don't make that move for me for better schools in middle school. Then I'm not in high school where it offers volleyball. And who knows? My mom asks me that all the time. What would you do without volleyball? I'm like, how do I even answer that question?
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's been in my life since I was 14. I mean, so it's hard to do it in one word. But I would say right now I'm blessed, and looking forward, I'm hungry for more. I'm hungry for championships here. I'm hungry to learn more. I'm hungry to just do more than we're expected to do.
It seems that, notwithstanding the situation with COVID, let's look at the past few years. That skill of balance has become a serious issue with many athletes. And there are a lot of expectations for athletes in managing their goals, their grades, being involved, doing everything they need to do to be the student athlete and hold the traditions of a program, to maintain the expectations of what you have for them to be and to perform. I can imagine that you see that, especially with freshmen, and it takes some time. I'm curious to know, how do y'all handle that for an incoming freshman to help teach them the balance?
And I don't want to derail this for a second, Victor, but you and I, it's early in this interview, and you and I have to somehow be able to focus on this whole thing, with Russ giving us the analogy of him rubbing butter all over his head to fit in some sort of hole.
I don't know, I've never been afraid to jump through an open door, no matter how open it is, whether you have to like put a bunch of butter on your head and shove your head through it to get through.
I had to hold that.
It kind of derailed my whole thought process through this whole thing. And so I'll try to get back on track with you. I need to be professional here. He threw that out early. It just didn't.
At least if you encounter a greasy door, like, you won't even have to think about it. You'll know it's Russ. Just look for the margin.
That was a good analogy. You knew what I was talking about. Come on now.
This is why you guys are going to succeed.
That was good though, Mac. You said that with like a total straight. I mean, that was like legit, like concern. I was like, what is he gonna say?
Good stuff.
You had me like, what happened? Sorry, go ahead.
So the whole balance thing, I think what I've learned from a business life, our family standpoint, but also for these young ladies, I think it's an unachievable phrase, if you will, like balance. What does balance mean? Because balance doesn't, when we think of balance, we think of 50%, 50%, like on a scale, and here we are, or maybe there's a little bit off, but we're, one side. And I think in life, there's times that one side is hitting the ground and the other side's way up, because it's doing in life what's important at that moment. I mean, you need to invest. If we're in the middle of season, and this happened to me a couple of years ago, we're about to play our first SEC season in the matches in the conference, and my dad gets ill and goes to the hospital. Well, I immediately left. I left and missed 2 or 3 days of practice and stayed with my dad in the hospital. I wasn't thinking about my job. It wasn't that I didn't care about my job, but at that moment, being with my dad was a whole lot more important than preparing my team for a volleyball match. And I hope my teams that I've had throughout the years can see that with me, that you need to take care of the things that are the most important. And sometimes that creates a very big imbalance in your life, if you will. But if you hold true to what's valuable and what's important in this life, then you're not concerned about it being 50-50 or 33.3%. You got three things going. You just, Russ mentioned it kind of earlier about when we jumped in here to this job, you just get done what you need to get done at the time. And that changes day to day. This year's been crazy like that. And the most important thing right now for us is communicating, trying to stay connected with these young ladies. And when they get here, we'll take care of them on a day-to-day basis and prepare for the future when we're allowed to do so.
I like your answer, Stephen, because it reinforces that phrase, the most important time is now. And given the setting you're in, if you've got a finite mindset where you know there's a beginning and an end, be it practice, well, balance is 100% into practice. And when you're in the classroom in the finite mindset, when you walk in as opposed to when you walk out, it's 100% within the classroom. So I love your answer, because I think for everybody, it's going to differ within the situation that's a priority, like you said.
Sure.
Russ, let me ask you, having been a student athlete in college, are you able to speak to that with athletes now and have that empathy of, hey, like I went through that struggle, and let me tell you the lessons I had to learn? Do you use those common phrases?
Oh, for sure. I mean, all the time. And that's from working with professors and going and getting work done on an off weekend when you don't have anything to do. I remember as clear as anything sitting down on a weekend and knocking out 80% of the assignments that I knew I had one semester, just because, okay, I have this weekend, we have home matches, I need to prepare for that, but also I'm not going to go out and do things, so I'm going to be in my room. Let's just knock out some of this schoolwork, and then when the weather gets, now again, this is a New England problem here. When the weather gets nice for the last like 4 days of school, I could be outside and not worrying about my final papers or whatever, you know? So, but yeah, there's a lot of that. I'm still close-ish to them, but far enough away age-wise and experience-wise. But yeah, we rely on that. I know, and I know AJ does too. Like, she'll talk to them a lot because she's fresh out. So she's, and same with Nicole. Like, they'll both help out with that tremendously with our team. But yeah, I mean, I talk to them about that all the time. You know, about just experiences and what I learned, and like, this is what I did and it helped, or this is what I did and this was the wrong way to do it. Don't do that. Like, that's probably I did as much of that as the hey, this is what I did and it worked. It's like, this is what I did and it did not work, so I wouldn't try that.
What are some of the more dominating obstacles that you're seeing now that those student athletes can begin to prepare for, maybe to speed the maturation process up a little bit, or to begin focusing on those specific mindset skills that they can have repetition enough that they come to you not completely green, but anticipation and preparation?
I mean, I think a lot of them are have the ability to do. I mean, now is a challenging time, right? So like, right. There's a big, like, just being out of the norm, being out of their comfort zone. There's what I would assume is a lot of stress that was put on families throughout this process on both sides, from the student athletes that are all of a sudden at home all the time to the parents that are all of a sudden have their 20-year-old or 19-year-old at home with them when they're not used to the time constraints, and those kids are used to a little bit more independence. But it's just, I think one of the biggest things is just putting yourself in a position to be outside of your comfort zone in any aspect of life. Getting like that's what I would say. Just go do something that you haven't done before. Go try to get from your house to where you're going to go, and don't use a GPS, and be okay with getting lost and trying to figure out where you're going. Like little things like that can prepare you for the kind of the curveballs and the unexpected things that come with being in season and being a student athlete.
Yeah, because usually those obstacles, they don't come in the form of skills, because we're all practicing our skills. We all have, special coaches to help us with skills. We're doing the repetitions. Uh, to your point, it is, I always call it the 1%, and they all add up, but it is the little things. It's training your mind uh, to not have room for doubt and not question yourself. And to your point, if it is as simple as taking a different route, it's just something that puts you in a position where you have to use your mind instead of a comfort zone where you don't have to use your mind. Steve,
And I don't know a lot of challenges in my life that have given me like 3 days notice. Like it just happens. They just come up, and you kind of think on the fly and do things on the fly, and just try to figure it out, and kind of do like a mini risk analysis, and try to figure out the best way to attack any sort of problem, and just go after it, and not being afraid to fail when you're outside, because when you're outside that comfort zone, you're going to mess up more than you're going to be successful at the beginning. And so just being like, oh, well, that didn't work. All right, let's try something different and figure it out. So.
And Stephen, in 23 years, I'm sure you've seen those obstacles change, from your first head coaching job to today. Everything is so different. Technology involved, recruiters, parents, select, all of those things. What are some of the obstacles that you're seeing now, those barriers that may not have been around a few years ago, that you're dealing with and spending that time on?
Well, definitely one of the barriers for me in 23 years is when I first took over, I was 26 years old, and I was the only coach, and you're sitting on the bus, and I had a couple of players that were 22. And so if you think about that age gap of 4 years, I knew their culture. I knew what music they were listening to. We were watching the same shows. We were kind of in that same realm of life, and then all of a sudden you fast forward, like you said, 23 years of volleyball. Side note, 1 year as a college golf coach. So, then that puts me at 50 years old, and I don't have many 18 to 22-year-olds that are clamoring to have me come back to the back of the bus so we can talk about life.
Or play your music.
That's right. They don't even make eye contact, I think, if you get on the bus and walk by. But, I think Russ hit a lot of the things that I was thinking. I think one of our jobs, a big job for us as a coach is, and it sounds weird, it'll probably sound weird to these young ladies, young men that watch your show, is that we want them to fail. I mean, they need to fail. And we have to push them in some areas in their lives, and it may be on the court, and some of it's off the court, where they fail so that they can learn about adversity and how to work through that, because that is life. I mean, we're living it right now. We've been living it. I don't even know how many months. I don't even know what day it is right now because of all the stuff that's going on. But this is real life. What we're in right now, and it's an extreme, because none of us here have ever lived through something like this. But things like this obviously can happen. So how do you pick yourself back up when things don't go exactly the way that you think they should, or in your mind? A freshman has a way that they think life's going to be in college as they come in, and day one, every bit of that could blow up, and it can be something totally different. These freshmen that committed and signed in the fall committed to a completely different staff than us, and probably committed even a year earlier to another staff. that, again, so it's totally different for them than what they signed up for in the beginning. So they're already dealing with a little bit of this adversity. And then on another side of that, I think it's about communication. And we have a young generation that's very satisfied with sending a text message versus talking face to face. And I think it's very important for young people to be able to walk into our offices and sit down and be able to carry on a conversation, or on the court before practice, come down, sit, talk to an adult, if you will. I mean, they're basically adults now, but they're learning. So there's this transition. And so those would be the two biggest things that I think I would hit on for them to work on. And Russ said it. I was thinking it'd be being comfortable in uncomfortable situations, and it's hard. It's hard at age 50, so it's really hard at age 17 or 18. So what we're saying is not easy, but in order to, like you say, to have that championship mindset, that's part of it.
Especially with so many athletes now who equate their value to their performance. And, growing up, I played football and baseball, and I don't remember a time when I did that. And I know that was a result of the coaches I had. I know that there weren't the social pressures. Social media is an entirely different thing that happens to these athletes. It has changed the culture of exception. It has changed the culture of comparison. It's done so many things to the psyche. And here we are talking about mindset. And that is one of the huge deterrents for this generation. Because for us, I always saw failure as an opportunity. I knew when I failed, if I did it better the second time, that would negate the failure, because it would show growth and improvement and through repetition. And it's a constant battle working on the mental game for them to disassociate statistics to their self-worth and their value. And when they get to that point where failure is, not only is it accepted, but you almost you get a little bit excited because you know that's an area of improvement, and you begin to use it to challenge yourself. I know that's a breakthrough for a lot of student athletes when they get to that point. And that's a great example to show the other athletes. Do you see a lot of your upperclassmen in your coaching career make that a priority to discuss with them when they do fail? Like, you got to get up. That's half the battle. And then from there, just don't worry. Like, we got you. Do you see those things happening more?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's when it starts as a freshman, they feel a whole lot more comfortable as a junior and senior discussing those things with you, because the failure happens all the way through. And I think it's a personality thing with a lot of these players too. I mean, I've had players that will come in the office almost every day, and it's not always serious talks, of course. Russ's and my personality is not going to be that way. They just want to come in and laugh and cut up, and I mean, they know they're loved, so they just come in and want to see how we're living life, and us the same with them. And then you have some that are kind of in between. Sometimes they'll be around, sometimes they won't. Then you have those that never want to come in. But even some of those ones that never come in, I've gotten some of the sweetest letters ever from coaching on the impact that I've had, or that my staff has had, and that sort of thing. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's just living life with them, and they have to understand that you're living life with them. And that's one thing that, as far as I guess you're going to say, like, one of the mottos of my life, and I try to live, and I don't always do a great job with this, but just trying to always meet a person where they're at, and not cookie cuttering players and saying every single one of them are here in their life. I mean, just because you're 18, this is what you're going through. You just don't know what's going on behind the scenes. They're coming from, like for us, we're going to have 18 players, 18 different families, lots of different states, lots of different cultures. I mean, they're all coming in different. So it's our job to try to get to know them as best as possible so that we can help them and talk with them, and vice versa. They can understand us better if we're talking to them, to again, just to meet them where they're at and live life with them. I think it's important.
Russ, you and I have talked about the importance of connection, and that's something that I admire you is I think you take pride in connecting with the players. You you treat them with fairness, you give them the benefit of the doubt, but more importantly, you coach when it's time to coach, and you know when it's time to be empathetic, and you recognize situations. Was connection for you a learned trait, or was it something that you realized was either a strength that you had as a player in having a relationship with a coach who was willing to partner with you, or was it the opposite? You didn't have that, and you know how important it is today. Where does connection lie with you?
Great question. I think I have a better connection right now with my college coach than I did when I was playing. And that's probably has a lot to do with being a 18 to 21 or 22-year-old male in college that thought they knew everything and didn't really understand what this coaching profession in took over. And he coached two programs when he was there. He was doing the women's and a men's program. And so I talked to him way more than I probably did when I was a player. But I always heard when I started coaching that it's all going to be about your connections and who you know, and it's not going to be about what you know. And I mean, that's opened every single door to me, and I had to start that. I had to start some of those connections with numerous phone calls and numerous emails and applications and just bugging somebody, to where one of my first opportunities in Division I was a coach in DC who called me and basically said, why is your name on my voicemail, in my email, on my phone? Who are you? I don't know who are you? Why are you calling me? And I at that moment when he called me said, it worked. I got him on the phone. Now is my time to go. And that's been something that that got me into another position in DC, and got me some club coaching experience. And it all just kind of snowballs in a really good way. And to make sure that I was doing the things that I wanted to do in life. So that was like, okay, I've got to do this. And that has helped me tremendously when it comes to even recruiting and on the phone. And I try to do these recruiting calls, and some kids are 10 minutes and you're done and you're off the phone because it's very weird and awkward. I had a call this week that was a little bit over an hour because I just connected with, easy kid to talk to. We connected on a couple different things. We had some things in common, and next thing I know, I'm like, holy cow, I've been on the phone for an hour. And I don't want to do that. That was the first time I'd ever talked to this player. So yeah, I mean, connection is huge. I've learned a lot about myself through my life experiences outside of volleyball, to be outgoing and say things that are on your mind. And I think that you can gain connections, and people tend to understand you, trust you, and respect what you have to say when you're saying things that are on your mind, and understanding that everything that comes out of my mouth, I might say this, but if I'm wrong, I'm going to come back at you and go, hey, I was wrong. I was wrong. I screwed up. That was my bad. I learned from it. Here's what we actually need to do. And we go and we move on from it. So that's kind of off on a tangent, but yeah, I mean, it's all about connections. Anytime I meet somebody, when I've had other coaches that have come in and worked with me as volunteer coaches or grad assistants or anything, I try to tell them and help them and mentor them into, hey, you go meet somebody, look them in the eye, shake their hand, and then follow up with them after, with an email. Hey, I met you. It's nice to meet you. Great. I just found out today, one of my grad assistants from ULM got another job out in California because of a connection she made on at a coaching camp that I had sent her to, because I wanted to try to help her expand her network. And then that kind of rolled into this new opportunity for her this year at a school out in California. So it's kind of, and I didn't even think about it at the time, but looking back on it, I'm like, that was a mentoring moment. I was just trying to help her actually get closer to home and make some money over the summer, and realizing, okay, well, this might help her and let's use the money that we have to get her to go there and let her make some money in the meantime. And then if she gets a connection out of it, great. Well, here we are almost a full year, 8 months later, and she turned that connection into a job.
The connection process to me, I think, is as important as a skill set. I mean, Stephen, do you agree with that?
Sure. Yeah. Anyway, I've kind of lost my train of thought on that.
Yeah, I was thinking of all the buttered heads he had helping all these people.
Russ did tell me off early.
Yeah, when he said getting in the door, every time he says, another door or getting in the door, all I'm thinking about is
door open,
butterhead. Well, let's do this. Let's jump to COVID, and it is unprecedented situation for any student athlete, for any coach. There is no rule book for this. There is no procedure manual that you have where you're like, oh, okay, it's COVID. This is what we do in a pandemic. Where have you found the positivity and the gratitude in this situation? Because I believe that your body language and your voice, all those things are going to lend credibility to your existing players as well as your new players when you talk to them. Where have you found that positivity and gratitude rooted in to model the character you expect out of them?
Well, as we said earlier, I mean, this is an unprecedented time. And I was thinking about how crazy it is for me right now. I mean, being in this business, 23 years as a head volleyball coach, but then even some extra years in there as a high school coach and a GA and some other things that I never had gone through getting fired from a job. And then all of a sudden when this is a crazy year to get fired, and all of a sudden no one could anticipate what was coming around the corner. And so I'm very thankful for Missouri State reaching out to see if I would be interested in this position. So a lot of my gratefulness comes from actually having a job. There's a lot of people that would love to be in my position in the volleyball world for sure. But just being able to wake up every day and work is a lot of gratitude for me. I'm also have a lot of gratitude for the health of my family, and not only my direct family, but my extended family in general right now, and friends and that sort of thing. So it's hard reading about a lot of the tough stuff with this, death and severe illness and people that might not ever recover, and whether that be physically or even financially and that sort of thing. So I just got to be honest that I wasn't hit like that, like a lot of people. So leaning back to that first word, blessed with where I'm at. So just thankful that Russ was able to come work with me. We have a great group of young ladies that we were able to be around for about 4 or 5 weeks before we hit this. And we've been doing these Zoom calls with them a couple times a week for 3 months, 4 months now, whatever it's been. And we're excited to get in the gym with them just because they're great people, along with great volleyball players. So I think there's actually the silver lining for us is we've talked to them more than we probably would have had we had to come to the office every day. And because there's still a lot of things to be done and a lot of things that we need to get done on campus that we would have been distracted by had we been in our offices stuck in this area versus getting to see them face to face like this a couple times a week. And Russ came up with some great ideas for us to get to know them, and they played along with it great. They did a good job of doing what Russ said about being uncomfortable at times and showing us who they really are. And we did the same thing for them at times. And so it's not going to be near as awkward going into the fall as it would have been had we possibly even just shut it down normally for a summer and then come back ready to go in August.
There are competitive advantages hidden within adversity. It's turning an obstacle into an opportunity. And by Russ building those programs, by you taking the approach of, we're going to get something out of this. If this is the time we have, we are going to make it the best time. We're going to grow. We're going to learn. I think that's phenomenal. Russ, highlight one program for me. You don't have to get too specific, but what's something that the players just jumped onto and both you and Steven were like, this is great?
Yeah, I mean, we did a lot of like trivia and games and stuff like that, and I think that was just fun for them to kind of. My goal there was to like feed their competitiveness a little bit, but the thing that was really just kind of cool was we just challenged them to like a 10-minute presentation, and we that had basically kind of like a hidden talent or something that you enjoy. And I don't want to hear the word volleyball. Like we don't want to hear anything that has to do with volleyball. And the stuff that we got out of that was like so entertaining. I mean, we had a player teach us Swedish. We had a player that was hula hooping like 20 hula hoops at a time. We had one teach us how to make a bouquet of flowers, and I'm pretty sure I could submit that to like local. Coach Max had submitted to like a local PBS, and she could have her own show. We learned about clogging. We learned about
braiding hair.
Was it interesting to either of you?
We learned about the wild chickens that are running around in Northern California. Like it was awesome to see them just do it. I mean, some of them were not super comfortable doing it, you could tell, and some of them like loved being in the have the spotlight on them. So I think that was it was just fun for us because we were trying to learn about the players too,
especially as new coaches. Absolutely.
So and then as we were able to, like NCAA regulation wise, we kind of phased in a couple of our new players too that are coming in, so we got to learn a little bit from them, which we wouldn't have normally done. So we wouldn't have had that kind of contact in a normal situation. So but yeah, it was mostly trivia and then these little presentations and just asking questions and challenging them. But it was fun. It was kind of cool. It was a great way to kind of for us to sit back and just enjoy them. I forgot one of them. One of the first ones. We had one of our players take us through all 9 episodes of Star Wars in 11 minutes with popsicle characters. Like she cut out each character and had popsicle. Here's Luke and here's Han Solo and here's R2D2, and I mean she had them all. And 11 minutes of what's 9 times it was like 30 hours of Star Wars, and she recapped it in about 11 minutes.
You were in heaven, and you could also have been. You were a source of, is this true or is this false?
She killed it. I recorded it. I sent it to my dad. My dad is my Star Wars inspiration, so I sent it to my dad. He loved it. It was like there just little things like that. I would have never guessed this player to be a Star Wars person. Never.
Probably had that little tear just coming down your eye of pride.
I mean, they were all great. All of them were amazing. And I left a couple out, but I have a list somewhere of all. I just kept a list because I wanted to remember what they each did. So it was fun. It was cool.
And that's part of that connection. So before I close out with a final question, I want to ask each of you, and I'll start with you, Steven. I look at coaches in a special way because it's a calling to serve, and they are selfless in their approach. And at times it's difficult to be hard on a player, but you know that good today won't be good enough tomorrow, and it takes that pushing to do it. But what is it about coaching that you truly love to this day?
I know it just sounds like such a generic answer because a lot of us who've been in this for a long time will say, I mean, it's 100% about the relationships. You know, having my 50th birthday this year, and then on Facebook, there's a lot of tough things about social media, about getting distracted by it, but then there's a lot of great things. I've been able to stay connected to so many of my players, and just reading one after the other, happy birthday, coach, and hearing it from players that I coached 23 years ago. You know, my first team, I'm still in contact with them and love those. Now, as I love those women, I mean, they're, one of them they said, you know, every time you post something about how old you are, how that makes us feel too, because they're not too far behind me, like I said. So that's what I love more than anything. It's got to be about relationships with players, staff, that sort of thing. I can fall back on that at any moment, whether I'm winning a conference championship or getting fired. I've just having that network and having that love of friends like that is just you just can't put a price tag on it. So that's what brings me back every year is being able to do that again, and thankful that I get 18 new stories starting with players, and a couple new stories starting with coaches this year. Russ and I will continue our journey together. So he and I are energized, and I think he thinks a lot along the same lines as I do with the way we live our life with others. So that's what I would think about the most.
You know, Russ, I was with you last year in College Station when one of your players came to the game, and you were so excited because she had just had a baby. And you were like, my gosh, this makes me feel old. And I just remember that baby literally climbed to the third section up those stairs. So she's obviously about to be a good volleyball player too, building those leg muscles.
Sure.
But with you, I mean, with just 8 years experience, almost the same thing is those players who were so excited to find where you were going to be. And if you were close, they were going to drive and come see you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I couldn't have answered that. I would have answered that question exactly the same way. It's just from that. I mean, that's like the top, right? When you get to see them, see their kids, get a baby announcement or a wedding invitation or even just graduation announcements. I mean, all that kind of stuff just kind of warms my heart. And even from just text messages, I just got one like 2 weeks ago from a player that was just like, thank you for everything you've done. You were amazing for the time that you were here. I mean, it's just, those are the little things. And I screenshot all of them, and I have a folder in my phone that's titled gratitude. And anytime I have a down day or I'm not feeling it, or I lay in bed and I'm like, oh, today's a tough day, I didn't get a lot of sleep, whatever, I'll open that folder, read one of those, and boom, I'm springing out of bed ready to go to work because I'm trying to build for that. It's kind of one of those, like, this is kind of a sales mentality, is like you're making a phone call today for that sale in a month or in 6 months. It's like, okay, like let's just keep filling the bank with those. And if I keep filling the bank with those, I'm never going to have a bad day in my life. Like, and it's just kind of, it's just, again, it just warms my heart. It makes it kind of, to be really cheesy, to charges up my batteries.
Nice promo. But you get a point when you say charging up my batteries.
Sorry, I get a point, so that would put me ahead, right? I was only a half point behind at the.
It'll be a whole new competition.
So that's what it's all about, and that's what makes it fun. Again, like, it just, when you feel that warmth from like the love that you create, even though you know that maybe when they were playing for you, they didn't love you that much. Like, sometimes there were days that they didn't, but now it's just like, they want you to know, they want you to be a part of their life.
Yeah, and there's no way to describe gratitude.
None.
And that, Victor, that same Texas A&M match, I had a high school player of mine back from 1993 that showed up with her family as well. So that was crazy, you know.
It's perspective. I mean, sure. It doesn't matter if you win or lose. You walk off that court, and somebody is there to say thank you for you.
Yeah.
And that has to just energizes you again, and it makes you stop and realize that it's worth it. Like, this really is worth it, because as you get older, you recognize the gift. Every athlete, I believe, has been given a gift, and it's their job to nurture that gift and nurture it with pride and privilege. And when they're done, pay it forward. And paying it forward is simply through gratitude. It's through coaching and mentoring others, and it's encouraging athletes to pursue their dreams. But I know for coaches, paying it forward to have an athlete come watch you at a game, there's nothing more rewarding, especially when they walk up with their child or they just got married. It's an incredible perspective right there in that moment. And that's the beauty, I believe, of sports as an athlete or as a coach. So here's how I want to close it. You said it a couple times. Steven celebrated his 50th birthday yesterday. I know he doesn't look a day over 49, but he is 50 years old. Russ really kind of screwed up, and he got him a Dad's Jokes book. And I want you to follow Missouri State on Twitter as well as Instagram, and you may be fortunate enough to witness some of Steven's jokes, possibly even Russ's. But I got to ask, Steven, have you had time to go through the book and maybe find one that you really enjoy that you'd like to share as we close this thing out?
I mean, I enjoy them all. Let's not kid ourselves. They will all appear at some point on the whiteboard or in social media. So, but this one kind of stood out to me as one that made me chuckle a little bit. And it's how do you organize an event in outer space?
Okay, I don't. Okay, how do you organize an event in outer space? Tell me.
You plan it.
I don't know. I feel like I have time on my hands again. Well, that definitely beats Butterhead. So
I don't know. I've never been afraid to jump through an open door. No matter how open it is, whether you have to like put a bunch of butter on your head and shove your head through it to get through it.
I'm going to give you a point for that one.
Can lead again.
Can we look forward to jokes once the season gets going?
Oh, absolutely. That never stops.
Okay.
Never stops. So
Russ,
whether it's good or bad, it never stops.
100%.
Russ, where can they find y'all on Twitter? What's the Twitter handle?
Our Twitter is at Missouri State VB. Our Instagram is at Missouri State Volleyball. And then we're on Facebook, and then Coach Mac and I are on Twitter ourselves, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. But most of the jokes, if you're a jokester, it's going to be Twitter and Instagram.
So I encourage each of you to follow, because even if it's a bad joke, it still makes me laugh and it makes my day. And you'll realize these two together are a very dangerous combination, both competitively and fighting for a laugh. So it's worth it. I want to thank both of y'all for taking the time today. I have, I consider myself blessed for the fact that our paths crossed. Russ, you and I almost 3 years ago, Steven, you and I a year ago. I have appreciated the relationship. I have enjoyed following y'all, and I genuinely am excited the fact that the band is back together again. And I see some great things in the future for Missouri State. And each of those players are so fortunate to have you as coaches, because they are going to grow as individuals and make an impact on society once they walk out, just knowing each of your values and non-negotiables. So, friends, I want to thank you for joining us as well. As always, if you have any questions for, either Coach McRoberts, or if you have questions for Coach Friedland, send them in. I'll forward and they'll let you know. They'll get back with you. But thank you for joining us. I hope you have a great day. And don't forget, my friends, charge up.